New customers are really expensive to find and create. So what are you doing today to look after all your existing customers? And that's the conversation I'm having today, and I've brought in a special guest, Peter McKeon for Salesmasters International.
Hi, Steel Pushers. Hey, Steve. Great to be here.
Thanks for coming, mate.
You're welcome, mate. Looking forward to this one.
Yeah, well, it's just, the start of the year, and we thought, we've got to have a good conversation around sales. I mean, all you steel pushers out there, you're selling machinery every day. It's a big chunk of what we do. I mean, any human on the planet is all about communication and sales, whether you're talking to your kids or your wife or whoever it is, we're all selling, aren't we?
We sure are. There's no question about that. And sales certainly isn't a dirty word, and we'll talk more about that later on this morning. People think selling sometimes is about manipulation or profiting at the expense of other people. Nothing could be further from the truth. It's about helping businesses and people solve problems.
Yeah, and that's what I was really attracted to, when we first had our conversation, when we were talking to you about sort of getting you in to help our business. I mean, Machines for You, we've got to get all these great machinery sellers from around the country. And the part I really liked that you brought to the table was all about finding the truth.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. When I have a conversation, and anyone else in sales who has a conversation, one of the strong points I always encourage, as we were with your recent training here at Machines for You, is just find out from the customer what is the real, genuine, authentic truth of this conversation. It's okay if we're not a fit, but let's find out the truth rather than some sort of feeble excuse. It
just starts from a really good point of on value. We're not just there to flog them a product. Let's find out the truth, how we can truly help this customer and how we can turn them into a customer for life.
Absolutely. And gone are the days of B2C, which is business to consumer, or the B2B, if that's your space, business to business. In my view today, in 2020, sales is all about H to H, human to human. 69% of your customers and clients and 69% of mine and 69% of everyone's, they're going to leave you or me for one reason, guys, and it's predominantly because of what they call indifference. That's almost 7 in 10. It's not that we actually did anything wrong, we just never really gave them a reason to stay. So when we talk about H to H, as Steve mentioned before, this human to human interaction and developing not just a customer, but a customer for life, what we really want to do is making sure that we keep in contact with them. Let's face it, sales is a contact sport, and I think over the last decade in particular, there's been a lot of commercial conversations trying to be had in the digital space via email and things like that. Has email got a space? Of course it does. But the telephone, you look at how cost effective, how immediate, and how proactive that could be. And most importantly, what I call belly to belly, getting face to face with your customers and staying close to them is profoundly important. Because I'll give you this one tip in this little segment here. If you want a customer for life and you're not looking after them, guys, you need to assume that your competition is talking to them. And so it's really, really important that now that we've done the hard work to get to them, that we actually retain them. Really, really important.
Yeah, and then, another part that you're really big on is everyone in the team is doing sales.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that was a part you drilled in with us. It's like,
totally.
The receptionist.
100%. Your business, like another couple of clients that we're working with at the moment, we talk about here at Machines for You and with other clients that we at Salesmasters have the opportunity to engage with, we talk about the customer journey. And really what that really is that everyone, not just the salespeople taking responsibility for the relationship with the customer, but everyone. So let me give you an example. We have a customer up in Brisbane, and they deal in heavy vehicle equipment, and not equipment as in steel porches, but what I mean by that is heavy, like the lifts and workshop equipment. And one of their customers said to the salesperson, they said, look, that girl in admin, she was pretty cranky to me on the phone the other day. I just don't get on so well with her. So what we do as a business is that rather than the salesperson having to talk to the management about that, the business understands that the customer is at the center of everything that they do. So like we're doing here at Machines for You, we get the person in admin to pick up the phone and apologize what that behavior was or whatever it may be. And those types of activities, when everyone in the business owns the responsibility, takes responsibility for the client, Steve, is gold, no question.
Yeah, and it's just so true because you're just handling the journey of that customer so much better. And I'm always big on that with our guys. If you're not delivering value or every connection has got major value for that other person on the end of the phone, or, H to H, belly to belly, that's what we've got to be looking at, and we've all got to be responsible for that. And that's how you're going to create your customers for a long, long time.
Absolutely. And you still pushers out there that are business owners or are in a management or a leadership position. One of the philosophies adopted here at Machines for You is very simple. Love the client and use the money. Don't love the money and use the client. So these types of value propositions, loving the client and using the money, commercially good. But love the client, use the money. Don't love the money and use the client. And those types of behaviours built into the business leads right through to culture.
That's brilliant, because it's just a couple of words, but it's a big different change, isn't it? It's the old cart's, not ahead of the horse. Just a couple of slide of words, but that's changed our business, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And talking about culture, I guess, if you looked at many businesses today in sales, there are two types of cultures. There's a reactive culture in sales or a proactive culture. And what I mean by that, many businesses today are reacting. They're waiting for inbound leads and inbound leads alone to come into their business. And because of the amount of competition in the marketplace, that's getting harder and harder and harder. So you need a really, really good mix of inbound leads, e.g. Machines for You and you steel pushers out there. This is the type of business that can generate those types of opportunities for you. But most importantly, you need to be doing some stuff yourself. But when these leads come in, it's not just acting on them, it's been far more proactive. Rather than tick and flick or what I call quote and hope, we really get engaged with customers. Let's really try and understand what their problems are. Let's really connect with them and find out what is the bloody truth of this situation. How do we help them? Put a proposal in front of them, then ask them to buy it. That's a proactive culture rather than a reactive hope and quote type mentality.
Yeah, so once again, we're very big on that here. It's like, let's put the energy and effort into our staff and train them well so that the customer gets the best experience.
Yeah.
Because, so often and we got a bit guilty of this too, we're onboarding these new salespeople, and it was like, we'd sort of just brush over it.
Yeah.
And then they go out, having these conversations not of value, and then all of a sudden you're on the reverse of it. So we've flipped that around quite nicely. We've got a full induction with the right person in the first place, because we know a big part of the equation is getting a good person to start with, good induction. But that's what creates that culture of, truly serving the customer.
I absolutely agree. And you'd remember when we first engaged together, one of the biggest challenges that I find in most businesses today is that they don't have a good induction. What they do is they get sold by a salesperson at their interview. And for the reality, the truth of the matter is many people in sales, it's the job they took when they couldn't get the job that they wanted. So here they are, they've got a great, strong interview. And for those of you out there that have got poor performing sales people, there's a reason for it. When these people join us, we've got to set them up with really clear expectations, which we'll talk about shortly, but most importantly, we've got to induct them. Don't leave it up to their view of the world in terms of what the standards needs to be. This is how we go about things here at Machines for You. This is the expectations, and this is how we're going to support and assist you. Don't blame them, train them. And if you take responsibility for inducting people effectively from the get-go, as demonstrated here, you're going to get much more of a profound output out of that. But importantly, you can gear for growth, guys. In other words, we've got poor salespeople, and it's frustrating, and you don't have to live like that. Induction's absolutely critical.
What about the old saying, Peter, where they said, what if you train them and they leave?
Oh, yeah.
And then it's like, what if you don't train them and they stay? That's a nightmare.
Yeah, exactly. So, learning and development and training is absolutely fundamental in 2020. If you're not bringing your people up to best practice selling philosophies and methodologies today, you're going to get left behind. Look, we've got a very simple philosophy at Salesmasters. We keep the best of the old. Don't change anything that's working. Crazy. But you've got to embrace the new. And there's a lot of new stuff out there at the moment, particularly technology and how it can help you and your salespeople drive successful outcomes for your customers. Really important. So you need to invest and continue to invest in the greatest investment on earth, which is your sales team.
Yeah, and Lyndon's going to be talking about that after the break, some cool things he's doing. The old modern salesperson is definitely changing, and we can get to use these tools, but back to the good old relationships and communication and listening and really, working in with your customers, is still there, but there's some really cool things that we can be doing better from these tools are working in the market at the moment.
Absolutely. And, one of the things that's important is that in my experience as I go around after 25 odd years, there's a lot of things that I've seen that have worked. And here's one of the key things. I can't think of a successful selling organisation today that does not have strong KPIs in it.
Yep.
Key performance indicators in terms of what, as I mentioned a moment ago, what their success measures are. And they have management that hold these people to account. Not Big Brother with the big stick, but you just can't have month after month after month after month of mediocre or poor performance. There is a problem. And rather than blaming the people, you may look at it could be a management issue or it could be just a development issue. But if you can set your business up with some really clear KPIs for 2020, you've got some expectations or consequences for non-performance, it'll start framing the more appropriate behaviours that we'd be looking for in the organisation.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you came in and helped us on goal setting, and I think it was one of the best ever goal setting conversations we ever had with the team or with me. A huge part of, people setting these goals, they all do the SMART goals, time, is it countable, do I think I can do it, measurable and all this type of stuff. But until you had the big consequence at the end, Peter, and I want to share that because the big consequence drives people to get a totally different result. And then the other 3 people to hold you accountable.
Exactly.
I think that's changed our organisation.
Exactly.
Mate.
And I think the audience would appreciate this. is a very, very simple 5-step business goal setting process that I subscribe to. Be careful who you listen to because there's a lot of people around the world that don't agree with my methodology, but I'm not going to sit here with the guys from Machines for You and the steel pushers and tell you something that I don't believe in. So here's the Peter McKeon methodology of basically how to get what you want in your business. Step number 1 is very important to have goals, so you need to find one. Yep. So what's going to be the measurement of that? Step number 2, it needs to be in writing. And the reason it needs to be in writing is that if it's not in writing, if it's not when it's in writing, it goes from the subconscious to the conscious. So it must be in writing, piece of paper that we can do something with. Third one, as you mentioned a moment ago, tell 3 people that will hold you, the business owner or the manager or the salesperson, accountable for these goals.
And not mum.
No.
She's going to say, it's all right, Steve's okay.
No, it's okay.
You're going all right, mate, don't worry, Steve.
Well,
not mum.
Our mums love us, so they're going to be a bit more forgiving. So I kind of get that. Yeah. But no, find 3 people who really understand how important this particular objective or this particular goal is. And give it to them in writing. So they get a copy of this goal in writing. So 1, find one, what do you want? 2, put it in writing. 3, give a copy to the 3 people to hold you accountable. And 4, attach a date. Now these gurus talk about goal setting, 5-year, 10-year plans. I mean, many people don't even know what they're doing next week, let alone what they're going to do in 12 months. So my objective, my recommendations, when you have a goal, break it into really small chunks and just set it for the first 7, 14 or 30 days. Something really small, because at the end of the day, only you or me or whoever is setting the goal is actually going to know whether it's accountable. And importantly, as you just mentioned, you've got to have that consequence. In the event you don't do what you said you're going to do over the next 14 days or 30 days, what's the penalty?
Yeah, I just had one recently where I had to lose 7.5 kgs.
Oh, wow.
And I was going to lose my electric bike. I tell you what, I did it.
That would have been a world of pain.
Yep.
All right.
So time's flying. After the break, we've got Lyndon in. He's going to have some questions around, the person, the salesman. So enjoy the 2-minute break. Run out there. Get back. Peter will be back shortly.
What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the actual template, and that's what we're going to land on. And then what we will do is you earn your stripes. We can start to play off from there. Does that make sense? So what I'd like us to do now, let's just move on to the 1 to 10. Let's have a couple of goes at that. While that's been done, then we'll revert back to this one. 1 to 10, 10 being credit card, love it, I want to generate leads today, right now, let's go. And 1 being never, ever, ever for me for my own reasons.
Now, one question I like to ask all my future client is, after what you just seen and what you just heard, on a benchmark of 1 to 10, where you're at. And what I mean by that, Peter, is 1 is you telling me, Sam, nothing personal, not for me, never will be, that's a 1. Mm-hmm. And 10 is you telling me, Sam, I see value in that, I'm ready to get some leads. So Peter, level with me, where are you at today?
Probably 6, I'd say.
And what do we need to do to get you from a 6 to a 7?
Great start.
Yeah, okay.
Tell me, what's going to make it a 7? What's the real blocker in play here?
Fine,
You
okay.
need to say that, because I've tested it without saying that,
Yeah.
and it's profoundly different.
One of the things I like everyone to do is to give me, is to benchmark everything that they've just seen on a scale from 1 to 10. What I mean by that is a client would say to me, Lyndon, look, nothing personal, but it's just not for me. It's not that I don't have the time or anything, it's just not for me. It's never going to be. 1. A 10, Lyndon, I love it. Everything I've seen, everything I've heard, everything I know now, I want to start enjoying these new leads today. 10. So based on that, where would you see yourself sitting right now, Peter?
Probably a 6.
About a 6? That's okay, it's a good start. But Peter, what would get you to a 7? What's the real blocker at play?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
Welcome back, Steel Pushers. It's good to be back on the show, and it's really cool to be sitting next to Peter McKeon from Salesmasters International. I've learned so much from you, mate, over the last month or so, and I can't wait to learn a bit more in this quick 15 minutes we've got.
Fantastic, mate.
So
Looking forward to it.
Let's get stuck straight in. From
Sure.
a personal point of view, one thing I've noticed, because you look at almost any other professional sector in the world, continuing professional development or personal development is crucial.
Yes.
You just don't see it that much in the sales game, though.
Yeah, that's very true. It's a good point, and a point that's often missed by many people. And I think one of the reasons is that not everyone views the profession of sales as just that, as a profession. And from my perspective, it certainly has been my entire career. As I said to Steve during the break, people tend to find themselves in sales, and it's a job that they took when they couldn't get the job that they want, and they just keep looking. So let me give you a bit of advice just around that. If you feel that a profession in sales is for you, and I'll share something else with you, unlike the doctors and the lawyers and everything else that we were talking about before, professional selling, and for some of you viewing this live stream may not be able to see this in your current role at the moment, but professional selling is the highest paid profession in the world. In the world. And I'll tell you something else just as a tip. It's the highest paid hard work, and it's the lowest paid easy work.
Spot on, that's what I was about to say.
100%, 100%. So one of the tips I give people when they say, what's the greatest tip that was ever given to you as a salesperson? Well, for me, I always struggled in sales. I was always kind of last or second last out of a group of 12 salespeople, and I wanted to know what made them so good. So one of my mentors at the time, who has now passed, whose name was Jim Rowan, who was recognised as the greatest orator in the United States of the 20th century. He said to me, Peter, I'll give you one piece of advice. Let me ask you to invest 1% of your gross yearly income in the greatest investment on earth. So let's say, for example, if you're earning $60,000 a year, 1% of that would be $600.
Yep.
100 grand, a grand. Go and find a little book on whatever it is that you're challenged with. How to ask questions more effectively. 25 questions to ask a complete stranger. How do I build some confidence in myself? How do I overcome the fear of rejection? How do I close deals more effectively? Go and buy something, invest in it for yourself, in the greatest investment on earth, which is yourself.
Exactly. What will you learn in the coming year? How many books will you read? How much effort, how much time would you guys out there in the sales game, just like myself, spend on investing in yourself and investing in your professional development or even your personal development? You know, being able to go home and be a little bit nicer to the missus, spend a bit more time with the kids, or get to work and know that you're there 15, 20 minutes earlier than you normally would be, putting in a bit more value time, not just time for the sake of being there. And
100%.
Master your craft.
Yeah, 100%. As a matter of fact, I'm not being egotistical here, but you need to really consider having a really strong, sizable professional development library. If you were to walk in my home at the moment and had a look at my professional development library, you'd say there is the library of a serious student. I haven't read everything in my library, I just want to be totally true here, but it looks very good when people walk into it. The point of the matter is we've got to go out there. There's so much great material out there, and particularly in this digital age where there's opportunities to podcast and just listen to audiobooks, and everything else that you want is at your fingertips. Most of it's inexpensive at best.
Yeah.
Lots of it is free. And if you've got some challenges about where you are in your sales process or issues that you've got in terms of confidence or what have you, invest in yourself. Big tip there.
Yeah, coming from the position of a student to yourself, just in the last month alone, I've learned so much. And if you looked at my bookshelf, I don't have a library. I don't have enough space. I have an infant child. But there's a lot more non-fictional books that help me develop.
Yeah.
There used to be tales of fantasy and all this stuff. So it's a very different change now in the last year.
It certainly is. There's no question about that.
So the next thing I really want to talk about is there's a lot of salespeople out there that struggle with this concept as well. I know very early days in my sales career, I really struggled with this, and it's the thinking of value versus price, understanding that money isn't everything to a business owner.
Yeah, great. It's a really common. Lots of people come and when I go and I do a sales audit, for example, in their business, and I talk to salespeople and managers, but salespeople predominantly, and I say, what's the biggest issue that you're facing at the moment? Why aren't you moving stock or selling solutions, or whatever your product or value proposition is? And they say, Peter, it's the price. Look, let me tell you something about price. People, particularly Australians, what they say they want is the cheapest price. There's no question about that. No argument from me. But that's what they say. What they really want is the best value for money. So the goal becomes, how do I sell value rather than price?
Yeah.
That's the key. Let me give you an example. If you wanted to catch a real quick example, you want to catch a flight from Brisbane to Sydney as an example, one way. You'd probably go to the internet and you'd look for a couple of opportunities, and you say go to Webjet or your favourite website, whatever. You find this one-way ticket for $98, and then you find another one for $48. One's with Tiger and one's with Qantas. Well, the people are going to pay $48 necessarily with Tiger. This is not to demolish Tiger, but they have 4% of the Australian market. But people like Qantas, who you pay double for, they have 69% of the Australian market. Yeah, exactly. So it's the value proposition that sits behind the brand, Qantas, compared to the value proposition resonating with Australians behind Tiger. Not good or bad, right or wrong, better or worse, but that's the difference. Your job is to find out what is your value proposition. How do I communicate a sense of genuine connection with my customers around value rather than price? No question about that.
Yeah, and when doing it, be the modern salesperson.
Yeah.
Do it in a way where you're utilising all of the tools at your disposal. This is over the last 3 to 5 years, the way I sell has dramatically changed. The way I use my phone, the way I use my computer, little things rather than texting. I'll shoot a quick video and send that through as a text message.
Yes.
Very, very simple things that, with the use of good use of modern technology, can really step up your sales game.
Absolutely, no question about that. The other thing I just think it's important to note is that there are many things other than price that affect a buying decision. If you looked at, there was a bloke by the name of Tom Monaghan, and he worked out that if someone wants a pizza, they want it now.
Yep.
He worked out that people don't order a pizza for a week or 2 weeks out. They want it now. And what this guy worked out, that if he could actually get a pizza into someone's home now, next 30 minutes, their home or office, the people would pay the most incredible amounts of money for it. And it didn't matter. And it didn't matter about the quality of it. It could be absolute, pretty average.
Spot on.
And he turned that into $1 billion a year business, which of course today is just Domino's Pizzas.
Yep.
So what's your delivery value proposition? What is your service proposition?
Yep.
At Salesmasters, we have a response time. If you were to ring my mobile right now, you'd hear, "Thank you for calling Peter from Salesmasters. I'm currently with clients at the moment. Please leave your name and number, and I'll return your call within 4 business hours." It's these types of little things that we can do to create a stronger value proposition other than price that will keep our customers connected, particularly on the back of what we were talking about in that first session with Steve.
Yeah, and it's not just value in the product, it's value in you as a person. If you provide value, then the end user or the buyer sees value in you, not just your product. And it's this sort of a very similar concept behind building trust when you're building those relationships. If you can build yourself to be this valuable commodity at their disposal, it makes a world of difference to your closing ratio.
Exactly, and I think ultimately we all want to be, I guess, what's called the trusted advisor. We want to have a seat at the table of our client's business. Yeah. That's the key.
Exactly right. So the next things I really want to talk about, and this is something you absolutely drilled into us in our first training session, and I took so much out of this, and it's finding the truth.
Yeah. Yeah.
And this is something that so many salespeople I know I did, struggle to do early days because they just get an objection at face value rather than digging a little bit deeper.
Yeah, exactly. And I've got some very strong views on this. I mean, most people in sales think that ultimately selling is all about having a customer say yes. Well, I have a very, very different approach, and I facilitate this approach to my clients like Machines for You. It's not about yes, or even it's not about no. It's about what is the truth of this conversation. And lots of these selling conversations are all mixed around with what I call lack of authenticity. And one of the things that we've really been working on here over the last 6 or 12 months is that if we're going to have a conversation with someone, let's just be authentic and be open and be a little vulnerable, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
As opposed to you, because customers are pretty, your customers, my customers, they're pretty savvy out there today. We talk about, they say, why would I do business with you rather than someone else? We say, oh, we've got to offer great service and all that. No one's buying that.
No.
Because they think if you were to leave, you got a next competitor, they ask the same question, you're going to get the same answer.
Exactly right. The buyer's much smarter nowadays.
No question about that.
Much more educated. They've got so much information at their disposal.
Correct.
The value proposition that you're providing needs to stem from that genuine, integral service.
Absolutely. It's about the customers. We were talking in that first session, if we can put the customer at the center of our world, and we work on a good sales approach. For example, when we meet someone, we've made contact, that we build the right desire around them, that we've got connection, that we've got what I call alignment or fit, that we can create the right options for people, listen to them, listen intimately to them about what their challenges are, or what problems we potentially could solve. We present the right solution to them. Not the solution that's best for the business, but the solution that's best for the customer.
Yeah.
As I said, we just don't want a customer. We want a customer for life. And as quick as we got them, if we were unethical in our approach, we're going to lose them. So it's about being totally upfront. And most importantly, we need to close the deal. So let me leave you with one tip. You will lose 100%, 100% of the sales you do not ask for. You will lose 100%. Now, I'm not talking about being assertive and aggressive or rude or forward. I'm talking about being authentic. If you've qualified people well, you've listened to what their issue is, you've got the right proposal that's got the right value proposition. The simple thing about closing is often all you have to do is ask.
That's right.
And the reason, if you are driven by your need to find out the truth in a conversation, there can be no rejection in that if that is the motive. It's simply, this is the truth.
That's right.
And the reason salespeople don't often close, they might say no. And that's the wrong approach, guys. You don't have to live like that, Closing really is a natural conclusion to the whole buying experience.
Yeah, I've found just even in the last 18 months working 4 machines for you and then learning from yourself in the last few months, there's a massive difference between driving forward with a sale because you've got a product that fits, or driving forward with a sale not just because you've got a product that fits, but because it solves a problem,
Totally.
because it fills a need, because it meets a budgetary requirement. You've ticked all those boxes, and then on top of all of that, you've filled that emotional need as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a massive difference. And then when the thing is, you can do all of that, but if you don't ask and you don't close, it doesn't happen.
No, absolutely. So that's one of the real takeaways, I think, from this session. You lose 100% of the sales you don't ask for. Make sure you take that message home.
That's it. So, guys, look, it's been amazing talking to you, Peter. In summary, look, build those relationships and also be proactive. Train your team. Steve was talking about it earlier. Make sure you get out there, find consultants, find people like Peter. Get out there and find and educate yourself on what your team or yourself might need to move forward in the coming year. Keep things measurable. Hold everyone accountable, from the receptionist to the CEO. Everyone is accountable in a business for their role, and make sure you keep them to that. Never stop learning, both professionally and, personally. Get out there, read a book, listen to an audio book, read a blog, whatever you've got to do. Make sure that you do whatever you can to develop and move forward.
Absolutely.
Because if you're not learning and you're not growing, you're dying.
Absolutely.
Pretty simple
Absolutely.
concept. And teach your team to understand value over price. It's so important. And then, of course, ask for that deal. You've got to close. If
100%.
you don't ask, as you said, you will not win 100% of the deals you don't ask for.
Yeah.
It's as simple as that. So, look, guys, it's been incredible being back on the show. It's been incredible talking to yourself,
Great
Peter.
being here, Lyndon.
I've learned a huge amount in the time I've been privileged enough to spend with yourself. So thank you very much for being on the show.
Mate.
Guys, the next episode coming, we're going to be talking about leads. everything to do with leads, lead generation, lead management, lead follow-up, lead time, absolutely anything and everything to do with the leads that are coming into your business. That's what we're going to be talking about. Good follow-up from talking about sales, I think.
Perfect segue
So
into that.
Make sure
Get those leads, yeah.
So make sure you're with us in a fortnight's time, 1 p.m, live on YouTube. We'll see you then. Guys, thank you for tuning in again to Steel Pushers. And remember, we're here to help you buy better,
But sell faster.
Talk to you again next time, guys. See you later.
See you guys.